All right, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be reviewing a kit from Victoria Miniatures that I'm really excited about. This is her Kangaroo APC miniature. I picked it up for no particular reason, but because she was doing a sale where the proceeds of those kits went to the Australian fire relief funds, especially for wildlife, sort of buy a kangaroo, save a kangaroo. So I figured I would get one because I really like the look of them, and I sort of am an aspiring Astra Militarum player. I don't have an army, but I sort of have like 6 different concepts for armies, and I really like Victoria's stuff. So reviewing this, we'll sort of go through what I got. The first thing is I bought 2 of them, so conveniently I got 2 of her sort of miniatures of the month that you get for free. We got a tank crew woman. This is sort of the classic sort of officer standing in the turret of the tank that I'm actually excited about because I think it looks really good and I'm going to include it in something. And then I had mentioned in sort of the previous video on the asset drop kits that I'm always looking for sort of fun NPCs for things, and Astro Witch, which is very clearly a navigator or some sort of other sanctioned psyker, is a really cool sculpt, and I think a really cool possible sort of Imperial Dignitary Battle Psyker or something like that I'll be able to include in something. This also came with a hedgerow cutter for free that sort of goes on the front of the tank. There's some sort of pretty beefy resin here, but the casting quality is pretty good, which is nice, especially when you've got all these nice sort of sharp but skinny points. It's nice that the casting quality is really good. And then here is the kit itself. It's a big boy. It doesn't come with a lot of instructions, but it also looks like it comes in a couple very sort of clear and distinct pieces, so we'll take a look at it. The first feature to notice about sort of the hull of this kit is, first of all, the detail on this is great. It's got lots of nice riveting, hatches, things like that. I think this would be a blast if you're interested in weathering. This is very obviously a Chimera-like, so it's supposed to sort of fit in that role. The turret's in the back, which I think is super cool looking. Tactically sort of questionable, but super cool looking. I've always thought the sort of tank designs that involve a rear turret, so here's the turret, it goes like this, are super dubious for obvious reasons, because like in order to shoot something, if you're hiding, you have to pull the entire tank out in order to shoot, versus you know, something in front where you're in front or sort of centered. But I think it looks super cool, which really, rule of cool is kind of the thing in 40k, and in this, you know, benighted 8th edition where cover doesn't matter and line of sight is everything, it's less of a thing. And in Horus Heresy, right now there are no Chimera chassis, so don't worry about it. You've got some modularity with the turret itself. I ordered a couple of the different weapon kits, so you've got sort of the classic heavy flamer. This is sort of a twin autocannons. This is some sort of, you know, beam weapon. It's not exact for what the Chimera has, but you can definitely imagine how these will go. The resin gates are pretty thick, but it'll fit right in there. There's enough room in these, I think. There's enough chunk that if you wanted to magnetize them, I think that would absolutely be doable. By and large, it looks like the kit goes together with a series of essentially chunky resin pieces fitting together. So sort of one each for, this is clearly the wrong one. One each for, yeah, each side of the tank. It looks like they fit pretty well. Not perfect, but sort of having issues where you'd expect there to be some join lines and stuff like that, even on regular kits. Casting quality, again, is pretty good. If we take a look at these, there's some mild stuff that would need sanding. There's some stuff where they removed the gates on some of the larger pieces that you could sort of file smooth, but they're pretty close to it already. Same thing is true on this piece. Again, there's little things, but it's definitely a high quality, nicely cast kit. This came from Trenchworks, which is a company out of Sandy, Utah. That I'm also sort of psyched about that. I don't know if Victoria is using them for all her tank casting or just the stuff that goes to the United States to save on sort of shipping and import duties. I've been interested in trenchworks for a long time. They're at the LVO every year. They have really cool tanks. I just don't play modern tanks, or sort of modern. By modern, we mean World War II, sort of historical gaming. It's not my jam. And even if it was my jam, it would be sort of airborne armies rather than sort of tank armies. So I've never really gotten a chance to buy anything from them. So this is kind of nice. The real question with any tank kit is, what are the tracks like and how much are they going to make me hate my life? And the answer to that is they look pretty good. It looks like they've gone with the sort of a couple solid chunks of track. Again, these have the resin gates on them, so, but like, that looks nice. And importantly, it's not the sort of soul-crushing, multiple, just single-linked treads that will make me cry. And invariably, you get to the end, and there's like a quarter-inch gap, and you're like, I don't know what I did, and whatever it was probably an hour and a half ago. So that super glue has already dried. We've got a couple other little things. I'm sure I'll figure out where these go. It looks like, yeah, this is the hatch to the top. So in case you don't want to put our heroic crewmen in, staring out into the battlefield, you can, close the hatch and button everything up. And then the last bag that comes in here is, again, modularized guns for the front. So you've got what's clearly sort of an autocannon or heavy bolter, something like that. And then you've got flamer. What's nice about these is these are actively already sort of pre-drilled for magnets. So again, just pop them in and out. I really, really like that people are doing that now. That we're including sort of where the magnets will go, and then the hedge cutter goes here, except straight, because again, resin gates. I really like that people are including sort of space for magnets in their kits now. Forge World did that with the Sisters of Silence tank. It's on this. I'm super psyched that that's sort of headed forward. And then we've got some exhaust pipes and things like that will go places. I found that the sort of drawback and good thing about Victoria's kits are, like, I have no idea where this goes. I assume in the back. Yes, in the back, right like this. So the good and the bad part about Victoria kits, which is what I was about to go to, is the instructions for them are generally pretty sparse. They're not sort of GW, sort of modern quality instructional kits, but they're also really, really, really clearly designed so that, generally speaking, there's only a couple ways things can work, and it's obvious where they're supposed to go. So, like, that's really intuitive. This sort of back panel only fits one place and in one direction. So it takes a little bit of thinking rather than just sort of rote following, but I really like how these kits go together. If I had an Astra Militarum army, it would heavily feature Victoria's stuff. I reviewed way back in the day. I reviewed her Earthshaker platform, which I think it's called the BFG, which is the sort of stand-in for the Earthshaker. It's also a spectacular kit. So if I did play Astra Militarum, it would have a lot of Victoria kits in it, and that would make things quite expensive, but it would look amazing while it did it. So a worthwhile thing to talk about is scale, because with third-party stuff, there's always sort of a concern about scale. So I'm going to find one of the gun kits. Where did those go? Okay, here they are. So we're going to take one of the guns. We'll do the dual flamer, just because who doesn't like Chimera with a ton of flamers? There we go. Stick that in the turret, like so. So that's sort of the scale we're talking about for the kit. Obviously, it doesn't have tracks on it, but that's what we're looking at. And I have a couple figures here to sort of compare it to. One is this sort of Goliath tank, Goliath truck kit batch I've been working on for Zone Mortalis. So it's definitely, if we imagine the treads add some height, which they should, we're getting about the same height between the Goliath and the Kangaroo. Kangaroo is a little bit shorter by a hair, but not very much. The Goliath's a big kit. I also really, really liked this kit. It was sort of fun to play with. I bought it to become scenery to essentially stop myself from playing Genestealer Cults. Unfortunately, I don't actually have a Chimera because I just haven't put together a Chimera kit in forever. And then in terms of scale against infantry, so we'll sort of turn this on its side so you get a profile of it. We've got a standard Cadian. So, the angle on this isn't great. So that's sort of a standard Cadian. And this is the Victoria Miniatures Arcadians, which is sort of a modern take on the old version of the Cadian. So if we look at it like this, the standard Cadian kits, if you think about the proportions of Cadian miniatures, they're actually sort of monstrous. They're much, much larger than they should be. Their proportions are all wrong. If we take a look at the two sort of just the figures, the Arcadians are noticeably more petite and sort of well proportioned like an actual human being. But I think that the tank is definitely scaled for the Arcadian sort of miniatures, which makes sense, or other things along this line. So this is also sort of if you have Forge World Krieg guys or Elysians or any of the other sort of regiments that Victoria Miniatures does. She has a lot of sort of callbacks to the old Praetorians or the Tanith First or things like that. I think it's definitely sized for these. Like that's sort of the credible size, whereas like a Cadian is like there's one guy and he takes up the entire turret. But I think it'll still sort of credibly work for that. 40k vehicles are sort of always out of scale with the infantry. If you start thinking about like how many people could we actually pack in here, it starts being a little bit don't ask that question. And I think that's because essentially if you put them true to scale, you get like a Chimera on the battlefield, and that would be like, all right, that's it. So I think scale-wise, I think it will work really well if you're going with the sort of finer scale, true 28 millimeter humans from someone like Victoria, and just stick with the brand and have an all resin 40k army that's just magnificent to behold. I think it would still work though with the Cadians. I think it'll sort of credibly fit in with that sort of aesthetic. Everything's sort of close enough that I think you won't have issues with, well, what is that? Like, the gun with the barrel on it is a heavy bolter. The gun that looks like a flamethrower is a flamethrower. So I think that'll be pretty easy to deal with. Overall, I'm pretty fond of this kit. I will probably paint it up just sort of like the Goliath to play with some weathering techniques, to have sort of some narrative related things like, rescue the Imperial dignitary from the wrecked tank. Some things like that will definitely work for narrative scenarios. If you wanted to make a mechanized force out of these tanks, I think they'd be great. Unfortunately, the sort of wildlife relief campaign is over, but I think Victoria Miniatures, generally speaking, deserves your money. Victoria's great. She's been in the hobby for a long time. She was honestly one of the first people who made me really view painting as an art, and something that I sort of still aspire to, her level of OSL skills. She's been doing great things with sculpting sort of alternative regimental designs, both female and male figures. And generally, I've found her very responsive to customer concerns, things like that. So yeah, overall, I think this is a great kit. I think if you're interested in chimeras but want something looking a little different, the Kangaroo fits that bill really well. I really like this sort of World War II Cromwell Crusader, cruiser. I don't remember what it is. I think it's Crusader. British armor turret. I sort of dig that look. I think it adds an element of uniqueness while still looking 40k-ish because you got, big, chunky, angular blocks. This is also, I believe, compatible with her Matilda sort of, I can't believe it's not a Lehman Russ kit. So yeah, I've got two of these. I'm definitely keeping one for myself to paint. The other one, we'll see where that goes. It may end up being part of a giveaway at some point, or hell, we might just keep them both. But definitely pretty jazzed about this kit, and I'm gonna try to get working on it here some point in the future. As many of you know, I normally play Eldar, so like I've got all kinds of track washes and dust effects and things like that that I don't normally get to use, that I'm super excited about being able to use in a proper tank kit. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think it's a great kit. I will put a link to Victoria's store in the description. Go there, buy really cool models from a really cool person. And thank you very much.